So good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this study session of the City Council of University City to order at 5:30. Any changes to the regular agenda? Mr. Smotherson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to, it's on the consent agenda, and I just wanted to check with the city manager if I am able to ask questions about the EOC room. Is that that's on the consent agenda, correct? And, if we don't necessarily have to move it, but can I ask questions during that consent?
Honorable Mayor, Councilmember Smotherson, it's perhaps easier just to move it to the city manager section.
Okay,
and then-
that's fine. Thank you.
So we will move item number J3 to the city manager's report. I also asked the city, you're good with that, right? I also asked the city manager if we would, at the beginning of the meeting, I don't know that we need to amend the agenda, but I think it'd be good for us to probably give a little update on the county response to the coronavirus and where we are with EMS services and those things. So we'll probably just start the meeting with that. I don't know necessarily that we need to amend the agenda, but I think it's probably good to get that out there. So let's move forward to the presentation for the Olive Midland proposed development. Mr. Rose.
Honorable Mayor and council members, in July of 2019, you authorized staff to move forward with a request for proposals for the property that we own at Olive and Midland. There was one response to that proposal, and Ms. Tucker will introduce the presenters that provided the response.
Yes, so this evening we have several members from the project team that are here to describe the project to you and see if you'd like to move it forward. We have Lou Vlacity, who's an attorney, real estate developer here in town. He's redeveloped a nice office here on Del Mar Boulevard, so he's very invested in our community. We have Michael Adventulas from CBRE on the financing side of it. Mark Mierenhoff, is that right? Mierenhoff? Close enough, sorry. He's the architect for the project, so you'll see some really great work that he's done. And then Tim Egan, who's the general contractor for the project as well. So, Mr. Vlacity, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, again, my name is Lou Velocity. I'm an attorney practicing for about in my 44th year here in St. Louis. Back in the 80s, I started doing a lot of real estate law and investing with developers and investing in my own right. Since that time, I've got about 300,000 square feet that I own and manage in 3 states, in Missouri, Illinois, and Arkansas. More recently, I purchased a building, I think she mentioned, on Del Mar, 8123 Del Mar Boulevard. Purchased that building. It was vacant for about 4 or 5 years. And renovated that building, and I share the practice with other lawyers on the 2nd floor, and we have the Catalyst Gym on the 1st floor. In addition, I came upon a building at Dartmouth and Purdue, again, that was vacant for 4 or 5 years, but I thought it was a very attractive building and thought it should have a better life than that, so I acquired that building and renovated it, and now it has several commercial units in there and 2 apartments above there that were renovated. I came upon the request for proposal. I picked it up somewhere, I think in the Business Journal maybe, somewhere, and was very intrigued by the idea of making something happen there. So we submitted a proposal back in the fall, and here we are today, and we've developed it a little bit more since then. We've had a preliminary meeting with 2 of the council members to explore it and made some changes that would fit more in with, I think, what they were looking for with the code and other issues with the city. So I thought what I'd do real quickly is, I think I introduced myself. I wanted to follow the request for proposal. I think the first question on there was qualifications of the team. So I think I gave you my information, and I thought I'd let the team members, give a quick biography, and then we'd go on to the presentation. And I'll turn it over to Mike Afantoulis.
My name is Mike Aventoulis. I'm with CBRE, part of the capital markets team in St. Louis, but we're part of a national capital markets group that helps developers. Lou Velocity is someone I've known for 20 years here in St. Louis, a developer who I've worked on a number of financings for. We help developers find debt and equity for their projects to help them finance them, properly finance them, refinance them. And we work very closely with a lot of our clients in terms of helping them with both the cost side of the project as well as what would work financially and feasibly in terms of market rents, things like that that go with the development. I've been in the business for over 25 years, worked in the area of asset management for a very large insurance company, did a lot of asset management around the Midwest in a number of different cities. Came back to St. Louis, did my JD MBA here at St. Louis University. So I do have a JD as well, like Lou. Been doing mortgage and investment banking for 20 years, was with one firm for about 14 years, and then recently came over to CBRE about 5 years ago, where they have a similar division that helps developers find capital for their developments. We are very versed in apartments. The one area that we are very strong in as a company is we're a Fannie, Freddie, and FHA licensed lender. So we are very good at understanding how developers can and will finance both in the construction and the permanent market, financing associated with building and owning apartments, which is an area we are the largest in the country in terms of placing as a company. So really excited about the opportunity. I think we've been involved in a number of transactions as a firm in the University City market, both on the brokerage side and the financing side, and we think this is going to be a great project for the area and the city and for our team. So appreciate it. Thank you. I think we're going to introduce Tim next. All right.
My name is Tim Egan. I'm the owner of Egan Building Group. We're the general contractor for the project. We've been in business for about 12 years now, coming up in May. We're a commercial construction contractor. We do a lot of design build work in the commercial, industrial, residential, retail markets. We're a big believer in design build construction. This is what you see in front of you with the three-dimensional renderings. Mark and I have been working together a lot on developing, what's going to be a fit for the area, what's going to, fit Lou's tastes in architecture, things like that. And you'll get to see that a little bit later when Mark presents. I am a big believer in the team format. And when I say team, I don't just mean these people sitting right here. I mean everyone sitting right here. My wife's the planning and zoning director for Franklin County, so I totally understand, what it means to work well with city officials, but also what it means to work well with neighbors and the community as a whole. So, I'm very excited about the opportunity and looking forward to working with you on it. Mark?
I'm Mark Mehrhoff. I'm president at Integrated Building Design Services, and I'll be the lead architect on the project. Tim and I have worked together on several design build projects, many of which have already been constructed and several that are currently under design or construction. I have several years of experience in the design build realm, from projects valued as much as $100 million to projects valued as little as under $100,000. I have a pretty diverse background in building design, which also includes multifamily housing. I've recently completed construction on a 15-unit apartment building in the Washington area, as well as a unit renovation for an apartment building located in a historic district down off of Lindell, and as well as apartment renovation down in Collinsville, Illinois. I also currently have a historic apartment building renovation under construction right now down off of Broadway. And currently under design, I have a 24-unit apartment building, about 50% design, that will be built in Sullivan. We're well versed in ADA requirements and space planning for living spaces. In addition to our background in multifamily housing, we've completed over 100 custom home designs around the St. Louis area, many of which include accessible design for disabled clients. And my office strives to be experts in BIM modeling, which produces high quality and highly coordinated building designs. We're also well versed in virtual reality modeling, which gives the building owner the opportunity to stand in the space before it's constructed. We try to leverage available technology to produce high quality building designs, and it's proven that it's reduced change orders and miscommunications between designers, contractors, and owners. So I'm excited as well to be a part of this project.
Yeah, thank you. The next item on the request for proposal was the financing, which I think Mike has already addressed that. So I think we'd move on to the, I think it was the vision statement, which I think you all have it in your packet there. But the main thing, our main vision for it, and we thought the highest and best use would be a 36 apartment complex. We're looking to attract a diverse mix of residents varying in age, ethnicity, social, economic backgrounds. That are looking for that small town, close-knit community, ability to walk and be outdoors more or less to all the amenities nearby. And we think it's positioned beautifully next to the Heman Park and with the University Commons right down the street, that I think it becomes a nice living community there, not to mention all the restaurants as you go west on Olive. So that basically is our general vision, for the project. Now, I think we're going to go into the specifics of the site itself and talk about the different challenges and what we have to look forward to make the project come to reality. I think we're going to start with a site survey. This was provided to us by the City of University City, and this is what we had to work with. And I think Tim's going to address the issues, with the site and what we plan to do.
As Lou said, this is the site plan as it exists currently. It's made up of a number of different tracts. The big thing that I want to point out on here is that I'm sure everyone here is aware that this does have a floodplain that falls on it. And this is a 100-year floodplain, which means that it has a 1% chance of flooding annually over a 100-year period. We have not done a ton of due diligence surrounding the site in advance of the approval of the project, but we are aware that the site, the finished floor of any structures in here will need to be at least 2 feet above base floodplain elevation, so we do have that accounted for. Initially, when we started at the very first meeting with city officials, there were 3 buildings on this site. Based on some feedback and additional parking requirements, we did expand on the parking, and we reduced the footprint of the buildings a little bit. We reduced it from 3 smaller buildings to 2 larger buildings and brought more parking to the site. You can see that we currently have 1 entrance onto Olive Boulevard. Depending on what your feedback would be, maybe we would take that to 2 entrances just to alleviate any concerns about access to and from the site. You can see in this area right here and around the perimeter of the entire site, we have green space. We will have islands all the way around the property, around the structures, and within the parking lots to provide green space around the buildings to make sure it's not a sea of asphalt out there. And if need be, we'll submit photometric lighting plans, things like that will address any concerns of light pollution or anything like that. If we need to do any sort of barriers to separate from the neighboring properties to the north, that wouldn't be a problem either. So I believe that's it on the site.
I think next we're going to look at the renderings and have Mark address the design features of the project. Just push the arrow
Okay.
back and forth.
So conceptually, we wanted to create a design that was both modern and low maintenance. On the lower level of the apartments, we're exploring the use of a horizontal metal panel. See, that's down here on the lower level. We feel that this will give the building a modern look, but it will also provide some impact resistance at the ground level. We are looking for this panel to have a metallic finish, which would be an appealing contrast to the remaining building material, which we're looking at constructing in EIFS. We're still working on defining a color scheme for the EIFS, but we envision the colors to be brighter colors, which will fit in well with the overall Mediterranean style of the building. We've introduced some accent bands between material transitions to break up the building visually and provide better definition between materials, just kind of right in between here. We're also exploring the use of an insulated metal panel with an EIFS finish that will give us the same look as the EIFS, but provide a more durable material and more cost-effective material as well. We're designing all the trim, gutters and downspouts, doors and windows to either have a black or dark bronze finish to further give the building a modern look and provide a good contrast with the EIFS finish. And then for the roof, we're planning a lower sloped roof with the standing seam metal roofing. Other views there. So for the site, we are proposing 2 buildings with 18 units per building for a total of 36 units. Of the 36 units, 16 will be ground floor units, 8 per building. And these ground floor units will be 2-bedroom units, which will also include 4 accessible units with roll-in showers. The remaining 20 units will be 1-bedroom, second-floor units. The 2-bedroom units will range anywhere in size from 1,200 to 1,300 square feet, and the 1-bedroom units will range from 680 to 1,200 square feet. With the exception of only a few second-floor units, all apartments will have access to 2 patios or 2 balconies. So these are, we tried to bump the resolution up as much as we can on these floor plans, but the overall building footprint is 11,500 square feet per floor for a total finished area of 23,000 square feet per building. The building height is anticipated to be less than 34 feet to the ridge. Building construction will be a wood frame structure and fully sprinkled. We are planning for a wood roof and floor trusses to span the longer distances over the units, provide for duct chases, and reduce the amount of bearing walls and beams needed to support the joist. Each floor will also have 9-foot ceiling heights. The lower level units will generally consist of a kitchen, living room, dining room with separate bar seating, restroom, utility room, washer and dryer space in each unit, and then the 2 bedrooms. For all ground floor units, we have patio access from both the living room and one of the bedrooms. Solar tubes to pipe in lighting for those units where we're not able to provide the direct sunlight. For the second floor units, we're planning on a living room, bar seating, their own washer and dryer space, a utility closet, kitchen, and a bedroom. Each will have balcony access from either the bedroom or the living room, and in most cases both. For the interior finishes, we're still in concept design, so those aren't really nailed down right now. But we will have code required sound ratings in between.
Yeah, I think that pretty much explains our vision and concept for the property, and we're certainly open to any questions that the members might have about it.
Thank you, Mayor Crowe. I have three quick questions. What will the range of rents be for these units?
Do you want to? Yeah, I'll let Mike, he's done some studies on that.
I mean, we're looking at the one bedrooms in the mid to 900 range to up to 1,300 plus or minus for the two bedrooms. But a lot of what we have to do from a due diligence perspective is to also make sure that our cost, our final cost can support those rents. So when you're doing a financial analysis from a financing perspective or otherwise, your cost has a lot to do with what the final rents are. But we think it's going to be in that range, 900 to 1,300 range.
And the 1,300 range would be for the two-bedroom?
For a two-bedroom, yep.
And thank you for that. And then these units will all be rental units. Will at any time any of these be converted to condos and sold individually, perhaps?
No, we don't have any plan for doing that at this point.
Okay.
We're looking at it as an apartment project.
Okay, and then how far up above the flood level did you say the ground floor would be, the living space?
I think it's we're told by the city that it has to be 2 feet above flood stage. The project has to be elevated 2 feet above.
Okay.
We don't know how far, we don't know what the actual elevation is right now, but that's where it has to be.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Clay?
Yes. No. Thank you, Mayor Crowe. Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. And so just to elaborate on Councilman Cusick's question, that rent range is a market rate rent range, correct?
Yeah, we believe it is,
Okay.
yes.
Just wanted to be clear about that point. There is, within this neighborhood, a neighborhood association. And I don't know if you gentlemen would be open to, as we get further down the road, certainly when you've gone through the necessary city approvals and it looks like we're going forward with meeting with them, because I think they would be very interested. This property, as you know, has been undeveloped for quite a while, and when it was developed, it really wasn't developed. So I think there's a lot of interest in that neighborhood about an exciting project and something happening. So certainly as you get further down the road, I believe you have my contact information.
Sure, yeah, we'd be
from,
glad to meet, yeah.
our earlier conversation. So certainly feel free to reach out to me, and I can put you in touch with leadership
Okay.
of that neighborhood association.
That'd be great.
Ms. Carr?
Thank you very much. I guess my major question is, what are the market forces for rental residential in this neighborhood on Olive? Because originally the properties were purchased, and this is more for my colleagues, they were purchased for commerce, although the 2005 comprehensive plan says both residential and commerce. So, and I also understand that the lot depth is very narrow, which potentially limits a lot of commercial development. So, so I'm interested in what the market forces are for, or the demand actually is for residential and in particular rental at this spot.
Okay, I was going to let Michael address that again. He's done some research on that issue.
Particularly with respect to University City, I think there are very strong market forces that are impacting the need for market rate rental housing, both along the Olive Corridor. I know there are a lot of projects slated, I think, in the future, down Olive towards 170. There is a lot of demand for this type of unit as it relates to spillover from Clayton, in terms of the employment in Clayton, and finding an alternative that has a good market rent to it that would fill that gap. So what we're seeing in all our fundamental, both from the standpoint of vacancies in the market, as well as the amount of absorption that has occurred on all the new construction projects that have occurred in both University City and Clayton, is that there's been very good absorption in the last 12 to 24 months of the newer projects, and there is a need for additional units to fill the amount of additional employment that has happened and is going to happen in both this region of St. Louis County.
So you're speaking specifically right now of Centene?
Centene would be one of them, yeah. Yep.
Okay. And so I'm actually a little more ambivalent in terms of whether it should be commercial or whether it can be residential. But it seems to me that we have quite a bit of residential in this area, and so maybe somebody could give me an idea of what the split is between ownership and rental in this area, because I understand they're two different markets. I'm not sure. Maybe it's Mr. Rose, or maybe it's one of your staff, just so I understand.
Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, we could certainly obtain that information for you. I think Cliff now can press a button almost and provide it.
Okay.
So we can get it pretty quickly.
Okay, thank you. And the third is, will you be looking for subsidy, and will you have, it looks like you brought someone that deals with financing, but I'd like to make sure that that this project is financed, and understand what your asks are of the city.
I think that subsidy is important. I think there's a dynamic here that relates to both the fact that the site is owned by the city and it's going to be sold or transferred to a developer. But when it comes to the cash flow stream of any sort of project like this or otherwise, subsidy can be helpful. Without me saying to you that we know the final cost of the project, I think that it has to be something that should be on the table and eventually discussed as something that could be there. I think it doesn't hurt to have that on the table, whether it's in the form of tax abatement or something else like that. It would help the project considerably when it comes to financing.
Well, for some of the other properties that were bought or acquired under these TIF funds, I think that we move towards selling the property at reduced values as opposed to tax abatement. The reason being that that this isn't commercial, so it's not generating sales tax or anything else. It would simply generate property taxes. So I'd be interested in seeing what your needs were. I guess I got the impression that you had a more developed idea, so this is more of a conceptual point.
We've gone back and forth. We didn't want to come with like a specific. I think when it comes to apartments, the greatest fixed cost of an apartment in its operating expense is real estate taxes. And so we find that versus TIF, when it comes to apartments, having some level of abatement can be helpful to the financing strategy. And to the cash flow of the apartment complex. So I think some of that weighs into the transfer and the cost of the land to the developer. So they kind of all play together. And I think that we didn't want to just close the loop on saying, okay, we don't want any subsidy because taxes are such a big number in the scheme of getting a project like this done and making sure that the numbers work with respect to cost. So I think Lou and I agree that we see this as like tax abatement being one of the ones that could be helpful potentially down the line. We don't know yet, but we just think that could be helpful. And we see that a lot of developers, in what I do and on the sales side, is a lot of developers run into challenges when the tax number is just can't be worked into the numbers because it's too expensive to operate the apartments with too high of a tax number on them as a burden. So some play there is helpful, but we just don't know if we need it right now. So we wanted to just say that we think it should stay on the table until we figure out and move forward with what the land situation is first. Like, yeah.
Okay, and then
Yeah.
again-
Yeah, Lou wanted to say something there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just make another comment. Yeah, it's very expensive to get a number on a project like this. So our goal really was to get a project that's acceptable to the city, and then we can drive the numbers to find out what it is. And they change dramatically over time. 5 years ago would be a totally different number than today. So it's very hard to go through the whole process of bidding out a project that if you don't even know it's the right project for the right place. So we felt our first step is to get a project that the city would be happy with and want, and then we can drive the numbers and answer those questions for you.
Okay. And I guess my final question then is, would it be possible for you to get us some kind of a portfolio of the developments that you have done so we can see what you have
Sure.
done and what the, what the associated subsidy or financing is so that we can get a better picture of,
Sure.
of what we're looking at? Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, I can provide that, for you.
Thank you.
Mr. McMahon?
Thank you. And thank you for your presentation and your interest in University City, and especially in that vacant area down there to see if we can get something going there. And those were some of the questions I had. So basically, you just wanted to kind of get a temperature from the council as to where we want to go before we get into some of these things. Because I noticed that one of the financial considerations, the first thing listed was that land acquisition costs were critical to the success.
Right.
So really, you want to leave everything on the table to have those discussions if we can move forward from today.
Right, yeah, and especially with the floodplain issues, that's a real
That's number two.
unknown, and we know we have to get a civil engineer to go out there and spend a significant amount of money to find out what the solution there is. We just, if you didn't have the floodplain, we'd be a lot further down the line. That's just a total unknown cost.
And that would be something, again, would you be looking to work with the city on if those costs looked
Right,
more than you even anticipating
Right.
at this point?
right.
Okay.
right.
Then the other question I had, I was just kind of counting the units up there. It looks like we're missing 4.
Yeah, well, I forgot about that. We mentioned that. This was our original building.
From the small- that's what I was
we
gonna
had-
ask.
When we had 3 buildings, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, we had 3 buildings. This was the design. We had to eliminate one of the buildings and then we were able to add, 2 units on the first floor and 2 units on the.
And that's where it makes, I was just kind
Yeah,
of
yeah, no.
piecing
I'm
that
glad
together.
I was supposed to mention that, but I kind of forgot.
Good,
Yeah, yeah.
thanks.
Okay.
Mr. Smotherson?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, my questions have been asked pretty much by my colleagues, but I wanted to answer 3 things. If you could explain ADA compliance in reference to your building. Is it just the first floor, second floor, and how would that be, if you could explain?
How are we addressing it?
Yes.
We have 2 accessible units per building. Those units will have roll-in showers. They'll have all the required clearances around fixtures. Also in the kitchen areas, we'll have required knee space, required work area clearances. We'll also have a barrier-free design. We have accessible parking right out in front of each unit with barrier-free curbs and pretty much a straight shot right into the unit. So we've excuse me, we've spent some time, just kind of in this preliminary stage, looking at all the circulation paths in the units, clearances around doors. All of our countertops are going to be set down at 34 inches for accessible heights. Is there more than that you're looking for than that?
No, and I may have missed it earlier, but again, and that's just first floor units.
Yeah, those will be for the
Right.
first floor units,
Right,
correct?
right.
Yeah.
Okay, and I asked this question to Lou, and he knows this, and I'm going to ask it so that everybody understands. If you could look at, compare this to the Vanguard apartments that are on Bellcrest, and/or compared, well, I would just say the Vanguard apartments, because one of the questions that was asked of me by a resident is the quality. And that's a concern that they have in reference to the building.
Yeah, I wasn't familiar, with the project, but I did take a ride by there to look at it. And just in my opinion, it looks very similar to what we're doing here. It's a much grander scale project. I mean, there are
Sure,
four-story buildings, and there's 3 or 4 of them, and they have a lot of common amenities there, like a swimming pool, gyms, and all kinds of things like that. But they're 50 to 70% more expensive than what we're looking at here. But as far as looking at that building and looking at this building, I don't see a whole lot of difference as far as quality of that building.
Okay, all right. And then my last question, it's kind of interesting, is that your plan originally was 3 buildings.
Right.
Do you actually see in the future expanding west at all?
Yeah. You mean on this site?
On this site,
No,
yes.
there's no room.
No. Well, I'm saying purchase and meaning the other
doing
properties that
other
are there.
property?
Would you consider that?
Oh, yeah,
Because
yeah.
you were thinking of
Yeah.
3 buildings.
Right. Yeah.
Is that
Yeah, no,
something
we
that-
would definitely, be interested in doing that. Yeah, that's what we
Okay.
like to do, yeah.
Couple of questions, and Lou, this one's probably for you.
Okay.
Only as you're the lead, and that is, I know you talked about your experience in the square footage that you have under control. Have you done a up-from-the-ground apartment complex before?
No, I haven't done an up-from-the-ground apartment, but I've owned 30-odd apartments over the years. Most of them been renovations, and the building on Dartmouth, and I just that was a total gut renovation.
Yep.
It was about as close as you could get to building it up from the ground.
And then the second one is, I know you, I understand the decision to defer a conversation on assistance from the city. I guess one question I would ask in reply is, in University City, we pride ourselves on diversity and inclusion as well. So I'm assuming that there'll be an appropriate percentage of minority participation in your contractors.
Yeah, say it again. I'm
An
here.
appropriate level of minority participation
Sure.
in your subs and everybody.
Yeah, I think we can do that without a problem.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate your interest in investing in University City.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. I'm assuming that at 12 after, we probably don't have time to do much in exec, so we will have exec afterwards. And to council members Hale and Carr, we did just real quickly move item number J3 out of consent down to the city manager's report. And
I'm going to also ask for item number J1. I had a question on that, that be moved to the city manager's report.
J1 and J3 will move to city manager's report. And I'd ask the city manager at the beginning of the meeting to just give a little bit of an update on the county's response to the coronavirus, since we'd had a conference call this afternoon, so may as well put that out up front so people can have the numbers and the websites to go to. Thank you very much, and we'll start our meeting at 6:30.